Hey guys, today is a very different kind of episode. I am going to share with you parts of an interview that I did with Alex Shozda of the Shozda Show. He and I sat down for like over 2 hours, talked everything swimming for his podcast and his vlog. So go check it out. It's definitely worth a watch. But what I'm going to do is cherry pick some of the best excerpts from that interview and share it with you. You're welcome. Here we go.
Keeping in line with any of the boys swimmers at NCAAs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? What do you think of the times they're putting out?
I mean, it's crazy. You know, Marchand.
Do you ever look at those college guys and think to yourself, you know, if they swam different, the way that you like to swim different, things would be a little different?
Man, that is a question I ask myself almost daily. Because it's a fascinating discussion to have, right? It's like, okay, here I am on my soapbox telling people, this is all wrong. We're going about this all wrong. Swim different, swim different. It naturally leads to the question, well, does that mean that these guys who are just, freakishly fast, they could go even faster? I haven't arrived at an answer to that yet. But I do think that the short answer is yes. I do think that even those guys are doing a bit more than they need to. And I think that in general, we as a sport, we tend to view the training cycle, start to finish, as one very long grind followed by a very short taper that is magical almost. And you know this as a swimmer, like you hear people say things like, "Oh, I just missed my taper. I missed it by like 2 days." Like, no, BS.
Yeah. The analogy I like to put, kind of the traditional mindset of a taper, is like you're trying to sharpen a very, very fine knife at a really low angle. Right. And like you just have a few cuts where that knife's still sharp before it dulls out.
Yeah. But the way
But in reality, or I guess in your experience.
In my experience, taper, and there was even a study, I wish I could, I've been looking for this study because I think SwimSwam put an article on this even many years ago. And there was a study that came out. It was a small sample size. So it's not like it's that great of an
academic.
Yeah, it's not that great of a reference, but there was a study that showed high level swimmers could hold their taper for up to 8 weeks. Okay. Now that's a little bit extreme. Like I do a 6-week taper. I would not go to 8 weeks, but if you just take that possibility that you could perform equally well at, let's say, 3 weeks as you could 8 weeks, why on earth are we over here calculating down to the minute? Like, okay, I got to hit my taper right at 6 p.m. on, 2 weeks before the big meet, or it's all shot to hell, right? Like that sounds ridiculous when you say it, but that's how we operate. Like that's kind of the mindset that we have. It's like, oh, I just missed my taper. No, you just didn't taper long enough. You started your taper way too late. Because when we get into taper, our body and our minds mess with us and we start second guessing every little thing. Am I overtrained? Am I overrested?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Stress is almost toxic for your performance too.
Yeah. The stress is no good. And so we go back and forth like this. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so many swimmers hate taper, not just because it's stressful, but because they feel like they are out of shape and they feel like they don't really have a handle on what's going on. Compared to when they are grinding out day in and day out, they feel like they have a handle on that. They have practices and meets where they step up and they go fast. And they're like, okay, I just need just a little touch of rest and I'm going to blow it out. And then that doesn't happen. They're like, what? Oh, I just missed my taper by 2 days. No. You just didn't emphasize taper enough. And you didn't prepare for taper enough throughout the season, because taper isn't something that you just spring on your body at the last minute. You have to prep for taper like anything else, which means incorporating recovery throughout your training cycle. If all you do is grind and bury yourself into a hole, there's no amount of taper that's going to get you to a place where you want to be, because you've done too much damage to your body leading up to that point.
So then how do you balance out your own workout structure? What is the difference between your grind phase, quote unquote, and taper? If you can't necessarily bury yourself, right?
Well, no, I can bury myself. But
not over and over to the point where you can't recover and reset that cycle.
There's a difference between grinding and working hard and getting yourself into a hole. You never want to be in a hole, ever. I think too often swimmers end up in that hole, and it's almost something that we're like proud of. It's almost a goal in and of itself. It's like, I got to work so hard that I just kill myself. No. You want to be in a place where you can perform somewhat consistently. Not all the time. That's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. But somewhat consistently, where you can perform at a peak, where you can really lay it out there and give it your all and feel somewhat, fatigued, somewhat broken down, but you can really step up and put in a good performance and not just make it through. All too often, we just make it through. And so when you're looking at a taper, okay, versus training, for me, I go crazy intense for 3 weeks, hard 3 weeks, and then I recover for a week where it looks just like a taper. But those 3 weeks, my body is sore, it is broken. I just finished my first week of a 3-week cycle this week, and throughout the week, my hamstrings hated me. My quads were about to pull, and my lats were on fire for about half of it because of the work that I had done in the gym and, in the pool. But I hadn't pushed myself to a place where I couldn't perform in the water. I hadn't taken it that far. And that's my goal, is always go as hard as I can for 3 weeks. Take myself right up to the precipice of the hole. And time it such that at the end of the 3 weeks, I'm at the edge of the hole and I can pull back for 1 week so that I don't go in the hole, and I can do it all over again.
Gotcha. So it's all about kind of, I don't want to use volatility because it's a bad word, but you're constantly going to that point where you can have the performance, letting yourself recover and trying to hit that peak as many times as possible. So it's almost like reps of grinding yourself out, recover, grinding yourself out. And the number of reps that you can get within a training cycle, does that have anything to do with how well you taper off? Do you think about that? Or is it more specifically what you're doing within those 3 weeks?
It's really specific to those 3 weeks. Again, the intensity is the volume, the yardage is very low. When you look at just my volume taper, my hard training volume on paper, you're like, all you do is taper, because I max out oftentimes at like 2,500. And I do that 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. In the beginning of a season, I might get to 35, or even 4,000 is crazy.
What's the reasoning before that?
It happens. For what?
For at the beginning of the season, you're stepping up your yardage a little bit.
That's that whole base building, right? Okay. That we do. And
so there's still a little validity to that traditional, to a certain point.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at the first couple of weeks when I come back from into a new cycle, into a new training period, it doesn't look terribly different from some of the traditional stuff that you might find on a club team. But it very quickly breaks away from that and becomes almost entirely breaststroke, the highest intensity that can be performed for a very low amount of yardage. Like I said, 2,500-ish. Yesterday, I had a super hard practice, 2,700, including maybe 2,800, including 600 to warm down.
So then how much of that were you doing at race?
700, 800. 800. So the main set was 32 25s on a minute, no pullout, straight to breaststroke, high tempo, all out. And when you hear a set like that, you're like, ooh, a minute. That's luxurious. Like, I like the sound of that kind of.
But I'm sure you get into 12 or 13 of them and things start to hurt.
It doesn't even take that long. I mean, shoot, I've only done the set twice. It was gifted to me by a club coach here local who trains a lot of breaststroke talent, kids who are, you know, my top competition. And the first time I did it, it was the day before tapering for sectionals. And so I was broken. And I started feeling it on number like 2. And I didn't make it through the whole thing. I didn't skip, sorry. I backed way the hell off of like 4 of them. I think even 1 or 2 I did freestyle. I just like shut it down, easy freestyle. This time I made it all the way through. I was really proud of myself. I was really proud of my body. I gave myself a pat on the back because, again, hamstrings hated me. My quads were about to pull. It was
So
rough.
is that another part of your training philosophy too? Because you mentioned the first time you did it, you took a few off. So do you go to a certain point where you start to see your technique failing, and then instead of just grinding through it and burying yourself through a hole, you back off and let yourself reset so you can keep performing at a high level?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's absolute. That's a key tenet of what I do. There is absolutely no point in training yourself with bad technique. Technique, in my opinion, is the cap on your potential. If you are training shitty technique that you do not want to have in a race for a long period of time, what's the point of that? Then you expect to go to a meet and be like, I talk to my body a lot, and we have conversations. I try to listen, but you're supposed to say to your body, "Okay, get your shit together. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way now." And it's like, what? Screw you, man. Like, you haven't trained me that way.
Yeah, it's never seen it before.
So much of what we do is so illogical in this sport. Like, it just does not make sense. And I can't believe it took me so long to realize this. But my favorite set to pick on is 100 100s. You know, it's almost a staple. It's like a rite of passage in our sport. And you see it every holiday period, like New Year's practice, whatever. And like, why hasn't anyone enough? I'm sure some have, but why haven't enough people step back to view a practice like that and look at these swimmers, these kids, and see like, okay, these turns suck. They're slow as hell. The push-offs are terrible because the swimmers are just dead tired. The technique is sloppy. This is how we want to race when we get to the end of the meet. But then we defend it, but we go, no, you're missing the point. This is about toughness. We're getting mentally tough. It's like bullshit. I'm tired of that. It is such crap. We get the way we justify stuff like this is we say, well, this is going to make them so tough that when they get behind the blocks for their mile swim or their 400 IM swim, they're going to be thinking, I got this. And they're going to laugh at it. No, they are scared shitless. And they are still thinking, oh my God, how am I going to perform on this? Because I haven't performed all year long. And I know this because I listen to these kids when they're coming back from races and I'm in the warm down pool, either getting ready for my race or warming down for my race. And they're coming back, talking to their friends going, that sucked. I haven't swum well in that in over a year. And the other guy's like, yeah, I know. God, that was awful. But we view that as like, well, that's just how it goes. Like, that's what you're supposed, in season, you're supposed to suck. And then you're supposed to pull it together at the end of the year. And that's crap. Like, the beauty of what I do is that it builds confidence. I never really had confidence going at, once I passed a certain point in my career where I was like getting older and bigger and stronger and times were just coming easy. right? When I got to a certain point in my career, like I lost confidence. And, when I was in the latter half of my college career, it felt like a crapshoot. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like, I'm going to like fake some confidence and, I got this.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of lessons. I coach people on the side. And it's always hilarious. I will ask a swimmer, like a high school swimmer, what are your goals? Okay. And without fail, it is always, okay, I want to make state. I want to win state. I want to go to junior nationals, all these things, right? These big lofty goals. And I'm like, okay, good. Those are good. How are you going to get there? And it's like I just spoke to them in a different language and they go, is this and like their facial expression is, okay, this is a trick question. What does he want me to say? I'm going to go with the tried and true work hard. That is always the answer. Right. Always the one I get. Oh, I'm going to work really hard. But where are you going to put that effort?
Yeah, what does that look like?
Where are you going to put that energy? And what I ultimately get to with this period of torture that I subject them to is, what are your daily goals that are going to get you where you need to go for the big goal, right? They don't have those. No swimmer has daily goals, in my experience. And what's more, I have yet to meet a swimmer, a high school level age group, whatever swimmer, who knows why they're doing what they're doing. Okay. Why is it important for you to something as simple as look down when you're swimming freestyle? So that, why do we not want our head to elevate when we swim freestyle? They have no idea. Our hips start to drag and that creates resistance and makes it harder for us, all these things. And they're like, oh, they're just robots. They just do what they are told day in and day out. They show up, it's on the whiteboard. Okay, that's what we're doing. And the coach, in fairness, does not have time to go, okay, you need to remember to do X, Y, Z, A through Z, and you to all like 50 swimmers or whatever, right? And so all these kids are left with is the whiteboard telling them what to do. The whiteboard says, all right, we're going 100, 100s or whatever, right? And it's like, hold best average. And so they just dive in and they put out effort. Oh, yeah. It's like a shotgun, scattered effort.
I mean, I'm guilty of it.
We all are.
Set like that, you turn on the mental jukebox, play some tunes in your head, and you just check out for the next hour. Yeah. I mean, that was me from probably 14 to 16 years old. Then we had Coach Greg Gillette who came in, who was a lot of your style of training and just completely turned me around as a swimmer.
Oh, well, good.
We'll go back into your stories.
And so, I know that oftentimes when I preach this stuff, I sound a bit unrealistic and almost, tear it down and start over kind of philosophy. But honestly, like, as somebody who can empathize so much with people who have gone through such challenging years of their swimming, not hitting best times, not going the times they know they are capable of going, and to see the cycle just played out over and over and over again, and there's no change. Like, we like to think that this sport has come so far in 50 years. And we look back at the 70s and are like, oh, that was crazy.
Right. And it's easy to look at times and just see times getting faster and use that as justification.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. That really bothers me. But we are still very much rooted mentally in the 60s and 70s way of thinking. We have not changed as much as we would like to think we have. And, to see so many swimmers disappointed with their seasons, and to watch them swim a race and they could go faster with something as simple as, don't breathe as you're flipping into the turn. But clearly they've just been allowed to get away with this for all these years, all these things that they could and should be doing differently. But in our sport, in this country, It is get them onto a team, throw them onto a team. I think partly because teams need numbers to make their team work, right? Financially. It's like, get them onto a team and get them going, and they will figure it out as they go. And then the kids who don't make it, we say, oh, it wasn't meant to be.
Right. Or they're just not swimmers.
Yeah. The kids who burn out, they weren't meant for this. They're just not tough like swimmers. Okay, some of that. But maybe we shouldn't be so prideful about that little aspect. Maybe we're losing out on some talent that, we otherwise could have in this sport, simply because we are too stuck to our traditional sets that make us feel like swimmers. But we get these kids who they don't achieve what they wanted to. And I'm not saying everybody is going to be an Olympian, everybody's going to break a record, but having been somebody who started this whole journey out of mine just with the simple goal of breaking 55 in the 100 breaststroke, and knowing there are so many other people out there who are like, I know I could have gone this time, and maybe that would have qualified me for this meet. I just wish I could have done that one thing. And to know that is fixable if we just take a step back in the sport for a second and we ask ourselves, why? Why are we doing things the way we are doing them? Other than, this is the way it has always been done. And to your point, look, it's working. Swimflation. Marchand is killing it, right? All these guys, the system is working, and that is bogus. Those guys could succeed if you gave them, just had them play water polo every day. A little bit of a stretch, but you know what I mean, right? They could do well under USRPT. They could be doing well under like Dick Scholberg, Germantown Academy crazy, and everything in between.
Gotcha. So you're saying it's more so a case of their training character and maybe some genetics, their build, just them as athletes.
Yeah, we point to the very talented, the top 1%ers or half a percenters, and we use them as the example. Like, look, the system is working, and you need to get on board with this, and because you could, you should be making gains like they are, if you're a real swimmer, but maybe you're not a real swimmer, or maybe you've just gone as far as you can. And that just eats me up. I think about all the people like myself who just gave up and said, well, I guess that's it. Now I cling on to this career, this sport, maybe more than most do. I think some people have a countdown to when they're done with their college swimming, and they're like, yes, I'm free.
Happy to never get back. We can both kind of relate on that one.
But I do think that there are a lot of people who leave unsatisfied.
I mean, I think you're the perfect case too, because you've been through it, you understand it from that perspective, and not only do you have a whole different philosophy about it, you've proven it in a way that gets a lot of attention too. So I'm sure people will listen. Is that a key part of your training too, that your events are very specific, 50, 100, 200 breaststroke and nothing else?
I want to be the best I can be at a single 100, at a single 200. I don't give a damn how many 200s I can do on whatever interval. That's not an event. So if I don't need to do that, then I will not do that. Some people do have to do more yardage. Like by more yardage, I mean more yardage in a block. Like some people are really good at doing a bunch of 200s in practice and holding it. I can't. That's not me. But I'm not going to be out there doing, and I don't recommend this to anyone I work with, doing more than you have to get the job done.
I love where you're going with that. And if you don't mind, I want to share an analogy as it's just ringing in my brain. Hear what you think about it. So in engineering, I did a lot with automotive. There's this kind of beautiful idea that the perfectly engineered race car would fail right when it crossed the finish line, right? That it was so light and it had so much power and everything. The safety factor was just 1.01 so that everything would just give out as soon as it finished the finish line.
Yeah.
So a similar concept.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, you going way back to the taper conversation, a lot of people start confusing their training with their racing when it comes time to taper. And they get into a taper and they go, oh my gosh, I think I'm out of shape. I don't think I can, do a bunch of hundreds like I used to. Great. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to. That is what we lose sight of. When you go through taper, you are not getting ready to race 10 100s. You are getting ready to race 1 100. Your body should not be in shape to do 10 100s anymore. When by the end of taper, you should not technically be in shape. You should only be in shape to race a single 100 or whatever, 200 mile. Take your pick. That's it.
So when did you start catching on to that? And when did you start implementing it?
Well, clearly way too late.
Right. I think you're a great argument for it's never too late.
That's another tangent right there. That gets me a little bit. This whole idea that swimmers are swimmers because they're not athletic, because they can't do land sports. Yes, we have some of that for sure.
Not necessarily where I was going.
Yeah, I know.
I agree with you there, but I hear you out that that's a very common belief.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this, that's my wife, Rebecca.
Pleasure to meet you.
Where I'm going with this is we do not incorporate enough athleticism into our training because we view swimmers as these weird little water mammals who can't exist on land. And so, we get your tired masses who can't handle the land sports. And so we kind of take that almost as a sign like, yeah, swimmers just need to swim. And anything else you can do, that is icing on the cake. That dry land stuff, that's nice. That's good. Have at. But when you start looking at the pie of where you can allocate your time, your effort, I would argue that on average, your coach, your parent, your swimmer, they would typically say swimming should account for at least 80%. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if you got people up to 90%. And all that other stuff, that's cute. That's nice. You go do that. But this is what matters. Because we're swimmers. After all, we don't do land stuff. And it makes sense because, it's a different medium. It's a different way of existing. And so you don't need to be good at jumping, at explosiveness, all these land things that other sports need. You just have to be good at swimming. And that is one of the things that we have it so wrong, so completely wrong. The sport has evolved to a point where even the movements within the strokes are explosive. You take breaststroke, you take butterfly, explosive, aggressive. You need to be able to lunge forward.
And it all needs to be connected too, fluid and continuous.
Right. And that's athleticism in and of itself. The push-offs off the walls, the dives from the blocks, the flip turns, like all these things. There are really good ways on land to not just work on those, but to improve those that you cannot do in the water. And so I hear, we all joke as swimmers about that. Oh, we're swimmers, blah, blah. But no, that is one of the things that has to change. So that was my tangent.
How do you find your programming for it? I know you have a trainer that you work with.
Yeah. That was, I've been doing this on my own for so long, or I had been doing this on my own for so long. And in the pool, it is still just me, myself, and I. But I mean, at this point, I've got that figured out. Like I've been doing this so long. The weight room though, I was a little bit lost because, I was figuring it out on my own, and that worked really well for the first 3 years of this journey. It worked really well, or maybe 4. And it was just get stronger, Well, that was easy. As much weight as I could move. Didn't matter if it was slow or fast, just as much weight as I could pile on. Get heavier. I added 20 pounds. And just get freaking strong. And I did. I mean, I got to a point where I was bench pressing 330 pounds. And,
Do you see a plateau with that?
I was starting to kind of level off a bit. But the biggest thing against it was, why do I need to bench press 330 pounds?
Yeah, because kind of what I'm leading into is I was in a very similar position as you. When I finished swimming in college, I just took all of that passion for swimming and transitioned it to the weight room. Just got super, super strong, and noticed very quickly I was getting faster in sprints. But up until a certain point, your kind of power to weight ratio for swimming starts to teeter off. You see a lot of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And I started to notice that what led me onto this tangent, that it's not so much how much weight you're moving or how long, but yeah, exactly. How fast you're moving it and how you're moving it.
Yeah. 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 And if we were just doing 25s, then in my opinion, it's purely about strength. Like, yeah, I need to keep, if I was just doing racing at 25, then I need to keep hitting bench and all these things and just move as much weight as I can, because I just need to be able to dive in and just freaking power for 4 or 5 strokes. That's it. But I started having this when I hit 53.8. I was still, that was my best time before sectionals. And I did that December of 2021. And so that was all great and everything. But then I got into a period where I was not progressing in the water. And December 2021, then in March of 2022, I for the first time did not get a best time in the 100. And then I got into long course, and I was eyeing that Olympic trials time, and I got slower, and it felt awful. And so I started rethinking, like, okay, wait a minute. Again, what good is bench pressing 400 pounds ever going to do me? I'm dying in these events. That has nothing to do with how much weight you can move. It has everything to do with how fast you can move it, how long, and doing it properly.
Do you even go to the point where you try to program or work with your trainer to program your weight routines so that they mimic your swim? So for example, if you're doing a 200 breaststroke, not only are you doing, let's say, rows or hang cleans, movements that are translatable, but also for the effort level and the time period. It's like 100 breaststroke, you're going to go as hard as you can for 55 seconds or 50 seconds in the weight room at that intensity, and then completely back off.
Right. I'm not there yet. I know Jason Lezak used to do some of that kind of work. And it's an interesting idea. A lot of what I do is based on, okay, go to muscle failure. And once I hit that point, and so it's not as much like, all right, let's just pace it out over 50 seconds, whatever. But no, when I had such a terrible long course season last year, and for the first time in 3 years failed to go a best time in either of my events, I was like, all right, I got to change some stuff. And I don't know, I don't have a kinesiology degree, no certifications and none of that. All I know is I don't know what I don't know. And I got to find somebody who can help me figure this out. And so I hooked up with this trainer who has been wonderful. Doesn't know a lick about swimming, but we collaborate. And I tell him, all right, look, these are the motions that I have to do. And these are the issues I have. This is where I'm strong. This is where I'm weak. I need to get better at this. I need to get better at finishing a race because my biceps lock up and all these things. And so from that, he takes and he's like, okay, well, here are some ideas. And we start messing with those ideas. And the movements that I do now in the weight room could not be more different than the movements I did a year ago at this time, which a year ago at this time, it was actually fairly traditional. It was bench press, deadlift, At the time, my knees still weren't good enough for squats, but now they're great, in part because of all this cool work I'm doing. And some pull-ups, bent over rows, and then like biceps, triceps.
Right.
You know.
So it's like all your traditional compound
Yeah.
lifts and some bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah. And now, like shit, I am using resistance bands on my bars, heavy duty chains. I don't know if you've ever worked with chains. It is really cool stuff that is applying. And I feel like I am so dialed in at this point to what I need to do. It's like this beautiful symphony.
Do you have that same kind of dedication for everything else that you do outside of the pool as well?
I
mean, not necessarily outside of swimming, but when it comes to even recovering for your workouts, let's say you're doing an ice bath or heat exposure. I don't know if that's part of your protocol, but diet as well, sleep, everything at that intensity. Yeah.
I mean, I don't listen to psych up music before I take an ice bath, but, you know, I get a lot of inquiries from people, you know, people who hit me up, email, social, all that stuff. And they want to know like how they can do what I do. Let's put it this way. Every second of my day is with an eye to how it will affect my swimming. This thing that I'm going to put into my mouth and eat, should I be eating this right now? Is this going to help me? You know, am I hydrating properly? You know, prior to actually with the work of a nutritionist, so I talked to a nutritionist, prior to about a year ago, you know, I wouldn't have this with me right now, hydrating during our interview.
It's been in the back of my head the whole time that I left my water bottle in the car too.
You know, it is everything. I mean, it's literally everything that I do. It's if I'm going to go out for an errand or whatever it may be, am I going to be able to eat the kind of food that I need to eat while I'm out that I'm supposed to eat at that time? Am I going to have to bring this, you know, even if it's a short trip, to stay hydrated because I have to hit a certain number of ounces in the day. I have to pull my butt off the couch at night and do my recovery stuff. That it's not fun. I don't get any enjoyment out of it, but damn it if it doesn't make me feel so much better the next day. There is nothing I do that is without an eye to this.
Yeah, you're just dialed in all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's what gets a lot of people. I start talking about this and you can see them processing. They're like, there's no way. Like,
because I imagine a lot of people come to you and they want what's the 10 steps that I can get to doing this in 10 days? And then you start leaning into it.
Yeah.
And like you said,
I mean,
a very difficult problem to solve.
Right. You know, human beings are big on fads and these
path of least resistance.
Yeah, basically, you know, look at dieting. I mean, keto, Atkins, paleo. Like we all have these quick fixes that'll get us where we want to be. And we have it in swimming too. It's like, oh, USRPT was the thing for a while. Because, oh, you just need to do this thing and that'll get you where you want to go. And no, it's holistic. It's everything. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, it has to be boom, boom, boom. You know, all these things have to fall in line. And it can't just be, and I get this so much. Or I'll just even overhear like master swimmers talking about they're going to improve their sprinting by doing 425s fast at the end of practice. You know, after doing a grinding practice of 400s, they're going to throw in 425s sprint. And that's how that's their big idea for like getting faster. It's that kind of thing, right? No, you have to change everything. And that's the part that gets most people. And not even so much like lack of will. I am admittedly, I know this, in a very fortunate position. I own my own business. I have a very supportive family and wife. If I had a typical job, one that like I had to travel for, especially, the normal life things that people have to deal with, I don't know how this would happen. I would find a way, damn it.
Yeah.
But
it might not be
it
as
would be
pretty
a
of a
hell
picture.
of a, yeah. And I don't know that I would be exactly as far along as I am. Most people have to contend with normal problems you swim masters. You probably hear this a lot. Somebody goes on a trip. And they're like, oh man, I haven't swum in a week. This is my first day back.
Yeah. Every day.
Those words never enter my mouth. Like nothing interferes with what I do. Barring something important for family, because family does take priority. But barring that, nothing gets in the way. And that I think is something it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. It's like, wait, nothing? Like, really? You don't have something come up? And it's like, no. If I adjust the rest of my life to make this work, and I'm lucky. Most people just can't logistically do that. But my mission right now is to be the best I can be. And to do that as a 41-year-old, life doesn't really allow for that.
Yeah. It takes a huge commitment, a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm in any really position even to speak on it.
Yeah.
You're just making wild assumptions. I can only imagine.
I go on vacation. If we go on a trip.
I saw the video that you posted in, where was it? St. Lucia, right? St. Lucia. You showed the different pools, what you're doing here and there.
But shoot, if we go, let's say there was many years ago, we went to Disney World. I was up getting an Uber to that really famous pool in Orlando where they have so many big meets.
Is that that YMCA with all the open doors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shed, but it's huge and it's freezing cold. Why? Oh, if you are managing that pool and listening to this podcast, why does it have to be that cold? But I was up at like 4 a.m. getting an Uber to get to that pool, when it opened at like 5. To get my workout in and get back in time to help get the kids up. Because I think at that point it was just 2 kids. Our third had not arrived yet. And they were the ages of like 3 and 6, and I didn't want to leave my wife with that whole responsibility of being on vacation and getting the kids up and getting them to breakfast and all that. So, I made sure that I got back and in time to help with that. But there was no excuse good enough for not getting my butt up at 4 whatever in the morning and not getting over there.
What could you do better? Or what kind of threads are you trying to pull at in order to make your routine better?
Well, right now I can only think about how bad I have to pee. So
go for it. We'll edit it out.
Can we pause this for a second? All right. I just realized you may have had to put up with that 1 ply that we have in there right now.
Oh, didn't even bother me.
I want you to know we are not animals. It is a mistake that is there. We are 2 ply.
I'll act like it never even happened.
All right. So how do I get faster?
Yeah. What are your ideas that you're working on?
It's hard because I've pulled all the big strings and I've done a 180 on everything that you can. That anything that factors into racing, I've done it. Nutrition, recovery, swimming, of course, lifting.
Do you track biomarkers? Do you take like blood drawn tests?
No.
See what your cortisol is, what your norepinephrine, adrenaline levels, testosterone? Not
beyond physicals, and that's because I'm such a I swear like ALS is coming for me or cancer, or I'm so paranoid about that stuff. it just sneaks up on you. It's not fair. So no, like I wish I could. I'm all into analytics. Like I'm a very much a numbers person. But at this point, it's weird. It's weird to say, in the same sentence that I've pulled all the big strings, and yet I still have much more to improve. The question I get asked a lot is, well, how much more do you think you have in you? Like, how much longer can you keep doing this? And all I know, and all I've known for the last couple of years is about a year ahead. And so far, every year that I've finished a season, I've been able to say, I know I've got another year in me. And right now, I know I've got another year in me of best times. Doesn't mean they're guaranteed to happen, but I know I am capable. And so, okay, well, how do you keep improving then if like there aren't any big strings left to pull? And it's just in the sport, as you know, it's the sum of the pieces that add up to a really big improvement. I still have technical improvements to make in my stroke. I still have improvements to, I've only just begun, I believe, reaping the benefits of my new functional strength training. All these new movements that are very applicable to what I do in the pool, I'm getting better and better and better at those, whether it's going faster, moving more weight, whatever, or more reps, whatever it may be. I keep getting better at those. And pool wise, swimming wise, when the improvements happen in lifting and the improvements happen in technique, even though my sets have not really changed much at all in the last 3 years, my performance on those sets, which are 100% about racing, prepping to race, my performance there improves. And as long as that continues to happen, I know I'm going to go faster, and just going back to our beginning of the conversation, it helps your confidence immensely when you can see day in and day out the improvement in such a way that it applies to what you hope to achieve at the end. As opposed to like, if you take a breaststroker, what good does it do me to go from averaging 3 minutes on 8 300s freestyle pull to averaging 2 minutes and 50 seconds in the span of whatever, months or a year? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go faster in 100 breaststroke. And so it's little teeny threads. It's the little details that make such a difference.
So just keep fine tuning all those little things that you're working on.
Until
you get to a point where you're no longer seeing the benefits, and then it's time to kind of reevaluate.
Yeah,
and find the next string.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to keep evolving in this sport. You can never say, okay, I've found the way, and I just have to stay here forever. You don't have to completely revolutionize what you're doing every year. You just have to make tweaks to adjust. Okay, looking at my race, I failed to do these things the way I needed to.
Right. So it's kind of just finding one bottleneck at a time.
Yeah.
Opening it wider.
So I'll give you an example. 2 things, broad and specific. 100 breast, prelims, sectionals. My stroke count, 5.767. What happened on that third 25 was I finished my pullout, and I had just a fraction of a second where I held it and I didn't get right into my stroke, which then dominoed into only 6 strokes instead of a 7th stroke. It was a long 6 instead of a 7th that would have gotten me into the wall quicker. So I had that long 6 into the wall. If not for that little hold at the end of my pullout, probably would have been 52. So from here on out, I need to, and I'm embarrassed to even say it, because one of the things I hyper focus on when I practice is getting out of my pullout quickly. And I let that happen. So obviously I still have things to work on there. From a more macro level, the pendulum swung back in terms of my speed versus endurance. What got me to 53.8 in December of 2021 was heavy strength training, just power. I was able to take it out in 24/7, only bring it back in 29.0, like I told you. But racing a 50 at that meet, it was the KMSC Pro-Am, which does the 50s of the strokes, which I love. 24.1. Great. I mean, that's fast. I know, even though sectionals doesn't do 50s, I know I would bet all my money there's no way I would have been able to go 24.1. I have lost raw speed that I used to have. And so right now, as I head to long course, a lot of what I'm doing is very focused on functional, finishing a race, endurance. But when I get into fall, I need to swing back and incorporate a little bit more strength. I pulled away from that a lot with my trainer through the fall and winter. And so I need to swing back a little bit, not all the way for sure, but a little bit, so that I can get back to taking it out really fast. And now that I can hold on, well, I've got that, keep the 28.4. Let's see if we can bring that down to like 28.2 or 3 and bring the first 50 down to like 24.5. So on a more macro level, that's what I'm looking at.
Overall, big picture. Do you have a prediction for what you think you'll go?
Oh, man.
I'd be willing to bet you already have it written down somewhere on a gold sheet. I'd probably on your mirror upstairs in your bathroom.
No, my wife would not allow that. That would be bad decorating. I actually don't get into a specific like that. I don't say, okay, 52.84 or whatever. And I know a lot of people do, they put it on their water bottles. Or, they put the qualifying time for the meet that they want to go to on their water bottles or piece of paper or whatever. And I don't do that. I certainly think about it all the time. I'm like, okay, what do I think I can get away with? Obviously, I know 52.9 because of that one little issue on the third 25. I think my potential for this upcoming December is somewhere between 52.5 and 52.8, and then somewhere in the 155 for the 200. But that's something I'll right now it's just 102.1 for trials.
Right. So that's the only number on your mind.
Yeah. Screw the 200. The long 200 is dead to me. I hate that. That's a different sport. It's different. I hate that. I hate that event.
But I guess in your case, where you like to dial everything in, is just one less thing to focus on and one more thing to master even harder.
Well, that's true. I feel kind of ashamed saying this, but I am kind of excited to go into a racing season now over the next few weeks, only focusing on the 100 and like forget the 2. I don't even know if I'm going to race that, to be honest with you. I used to be of the traditional mindset, like, okay, well, I suck at the 200, but at least it can help my 100, and I may just say, screw it. Like, no 200. That's hard for me to do because I am one stubborn SOB. Like I do not give up on things. And so to write off the 200 and just be like, oh, screw that. I say that, but then part of me in the back of my mind is going, trying to figure out how I can make it work. Because I did the same thing with the short 200. I gave up on that. That was dead to me too. Until I took the pressure off and I started just literally messing with, playing around with it. And like I would go to a meet and I would swim the 200 like once a year at the KMSC Pro-Am. And I would go and I would just have fun. How fast could I go? Averaging like 3 strokes a length. Just fun. And then if I decided to, like on the last 50, if I was feeling it, I would push on the last 50. I would like race that one. And what usually motivated me to do that is if some kid was like right ahead of me and I knew I could track them down, like I would do that and I would take off. But I would finish it and I would be like, that was fun. That was great. For once in my life, that race didn't suck. And it was such a freeing feeling. And it evolved to where I was like, okay, I'm curious. If instead of, let's say, 3 strokes a length, what if I averaged 4? Like, what would happen? And so that little DPS game, distance per stroke game, turned into what has become my strategy now for the 200, which is power, distance per stroke through the first 5 lengths, and then turn it up. Use my strengths, which is strength, like just that ability to push and pull down. Use that to carry me through the first 5 lengths and then turn it up. And I can't tell you how much different. It's a complete 180 on my view of the 200. I dreaded it. I hated it. And now I look forward to it. I'm like, yes, this is my love doing this.
It's kind of beautiful how that all manifested too, from just playing a game out of it and not taking it seriously to finding something that works super well for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, but the problem, I have the benefit of having done this for 35 years. And who is in their right mind is going to, who's in the prime of their career, whether they're 18 years old or 24 years, whatever it may be, and be like, at this race, I'm just going to just mess around, especially your coach isn't going to tell you to do that. If you do, you're going to get shit for it. So who's going to do that? And it's only when you have nothing to lose and you're just like, I'm done. F it. That maybe you can really start to have some awareness, some understanding of what to actually do. And it was that same attitude that got me. This is a cool story. It was the same attitude that got me my first break in the 100. At KMSC Pro-Am, December 2019, I will never forget. Prelims, I sucked. I was 55.6. And I was kind of devastated. I had changed my training for over a year to this whole like swim different, less is more, swim different thing. And I was like, really? And at that point, at that moment, I was convinced, 55 is the best I am ever going to be. Damn it. I thought I had more. And I was fully prepared to scratch because I had done this meet for a few years. And my usual play was do prelims, scratch, don't show up for finals. Because I had I had a very young family. My kids were all very little at the time. And it was like, see what I can do in prelims. Probably not going to be much. Go home. And so I was going to do the same thing. I was like, damn, 55.6. Slower than I had gone earlier in the year. And I went to the scratch table and determined I was just going to scratch out and go home. And in prelims, I would race Cody Miller. Well, I swam in the same pool as Cody Miller. And so that was, that's always cool, right? You race one of the fast guys. And I went to the scratch table and I saw his name on there. He hadn't scratched out yet. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll probably just go 55 again, but I'll get to race one more time next to Cody Miller. And that in and of itself is just kind of worth it, kind of cool. And I got behind the blocks. I remember thinking, fuck it. I don't care about the time. Like, this just is what it is. And I'm just going to have fun being here. And I dove in, swam the first 75 the way I normally do, came off the turn, and fully expecting the normal shutdown of my body. Cause I told you that's what happens. It's like my body shuts down in the last 25. But I got this determination in me. And, cause there was this other guy right there, another guy. And I was like, I'm going for it. Just going for it. I'm giving it. And that sounds strange because when do you not go for it? Like, when do you not give it your all? Right. But it was like this next level of determination that got into me. And I was just like, I don't care how ugly this looks. I'm just going to freaking go as hard as I can and get to that wall. And thank goodness I did, 50. And it was so funny. It was like 54.8. And normally when you do that, right, you look at your teammates and you're like, yeah, right? You look at your coach, your friends, your family. And I had nobody there. And so I started to look around for somebody who would understand like what that meant, like how significant that was. Almost 19 years to see that time. And I looked around, I was like, yes. So it was, it was cool.
I think these days you probably have a lot more people in your corner.
I do.
Both on the pool deck and off.
I do. At sectionals, it was really cool. So finals of the 100 breast, I think. Yeah, it was 100 breast. They were doing the names. Lane 1, so-and-so. Lane 2, so-and-so. Lane 5, the man, the myth, the legend, James Fike. And there were these guys, these high school guys on the side of the pool that erupted with like, yeah. And after the race, they wanted a picture with me. And so, yeah, it's like, now that I think about it, now that, this came up, I told you originally what drove me was anger and bitterness. And that has since evolved into like these new goals and what's my potential. But along with that, it's the community and the support that I get when I go to meets, because it's every meet I go to, somebody comes up and talks to me. People might want a picture, an autograph. Like, it's just really humbling. Like, people tell me, oh, this is so inspiring what you're doing. And I don't even see it that way. Like, I'm just chasing my goals.
Right. And I mean, kind of from your story when you were racing Cody Miller, you've gone from swimming wicked fast to not having anybody on deck who knew what it meant from you to having a lot of people on deck recognize you.
Yeah.
What do you kind of see coming with that? Do you feel a responsibility? Do you feel like it's something you need to manage? Or do you kind of feel like you can continue doing exactly what you're doing and kind of just be humble with anything else and what anybody else pays attention to?
Well, I've tried not to let the fame and fortune paparazzi go to my head. It's
because I mean, I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. I mean, eyes are going to keep turning.
I don't feel it either. But I don't know if this answers your question, but sometimes kids come up to me and they'll start asking me like, do you have any advice? Even for not just like breaststroke, but just training, or for a different like 100 fly or something like that. And so it's fun to be able to talk to them about how what I'm doing can help them, or just what I've learned might be able to help them. And, because obviously I've learned so much in the sport. I feel like I need to pass, I need to make it worth it beyond just, a time on the clock. Like, how can I pass this information off to somebody? And well, it's also jogging my memory that, one of the other things that I view as my responsibility is using my experience and whatever tiny pedestal I have, to try to influence our sport and change people's minds about what should and what should be, what should not be, why, how, all these questions that go unanswered. I try to be as much of a voice as I can for a little bit of reason, a little bit of sanity, in this crazy sport that we make even crazier with, those notions that are so deeply rooted in an era that really had no idea what it was doing.
So for the people listening, if you can put it all in a message, just one piece of advice that they could take away with, what would it be?
And to that, I tell, those age groupers, high schoolers especially, think about your body as like a bank, and come up with a list of things that you want to pay for, okay, from the bank. List of things that you need to do. And this is tricky because, again, when I talk to these swimmers and I start telling them, this is what you're doing, this is why you should not be doing it because of these hydrodynamics and all these, these things. This is what you should be doing. It's the eyes glaze over because they've never heard any of this stuff before. And so for them to like compile a list of what they need to be doing, it's oftentimes hard. They don't know what they need to be doing. Coach tells them what they need to be doing. So go to your coach with race video in hand. Say, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I stuck? Tell me in this video the things that will make, if I do them better, what will make me go faster? That is your wish list of things that you want to pay for. You got this bank over here. The typical approach is just toss all the money out at every practice to all the things and like hope some of it gets you what you want. But instead of doing that, take the money that you have because you have a fine effort. The money is your effort, the amount of energy you have a finite amount, and start applying it to the things that you want. The most important things that will get you the times that you want. And all that other stuff that you don't want, well, it would be nice to say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit this one out. Can't do that. But don't kill yourself trying to make that happen. How many swimmers dive in at warm up and fly? They sprint through it and they don't go much faster than in the main set than they did in warm up. That's an easy one right there. So I go with I think I've just made this up on the fly and I'm quite pleased with myself.
It's a good analogy, yeah.
I may have to copyright that or something.
You can make a shirt out of it.
And so, yeah, wish list, bank, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Always know exactly what you need to do improve and then swim with the purpose to work specifically on those things.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I would summarize it.
Yeah. I like the bank thing better though.
I agree. It sells better too. I think we've done a solid job so far, especially on your end. I think it gives a great perspective to show people how you think and what motivates you and your whole philosophy around it, which I haven't really been able to hear of everything I've learned about you. Because it seems like every single time you come onto someone else's podcast or panel, they get very specific. They want to know like day to day, what does your week look like? What specific exercises you're doing in dryland.
Right.
Or just here you kind of educated myself and anybody who would listen on more of your approach that helps you structure everything.
Yeah. I think my angle, and I do this at clinics too. I have a very different angle that I approach, obviously, the sport from. I'm not the Olympian with the gold medal telling you this is what you need to do to go win a gold medal. Or even the Olympian who struggled for a year or two and then like got the gold medal. You know, I think I'm pretty represent, even though I'm swimming times that are at a very high level. Like my experience is relatable and pretty, I think, representative of the average swimmer, what the average swimmer goes through. And that struggle of maybe one season after another, you just don't hit it. And you know you have more in you, but you don't know how to get there. So that's kind of how I approach it with my clinics and stuff. When kids are looking at this old guy and going, what the hell is he doing in front of us? It's like, look, I know how you feel. You know, I know what your mindset is behind the blocks. And it's not, how am I going to get this gold medal at the Olympics? It's, how am I going to look at myself in the mirror and tell myself that it's worth getting up the next day to take the next beating and potentially see the same freaking results, you know?
Yeah, I think you have a very logical way of communicating it too. It's just easy for people, like you said, again, to relate to.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, no, I love doing this.
You've been outstanding.